Management Research. Hello and welcome to the Management Research podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eugene. Hello and welcome to the next episode in my podcast dedicated to management research, and in particular we run now the mini-series on strategic management. In our mini-series, in the probably last, 2 dozens of episodes, we talk about the 5-process framework, and we try to go as deep as possible into this 5-process framework to understand the drivers that influence each of these forces. Today we elaborate on one of the drivers that has impact on the bargaining power of suppliers and actual buyers, because you can be a buyer, you can be a supplier depending on where you are in negotiation. So if you want to buy something from someone, then you are the buyer, and the pros will apply to you and the cons will be against you. And if somebody tries to buy it from you, then you will become a buyer, and the things that I will mention today may be the opposite one. The cons will become the pros for you, how you can increase your bargaining power. And one of the drivers, actually the last one I'm going to talk about in this specific force, is the ability to integrate vertically. If you remember, in our previous episodes we talked about the size and concentrations of buyers and suppliers, and that they have impact. And if there is only one buyer for your product, then probably you will have to pay a lower price, just because the buyer, you will be dependent. You can be many sellers, only one buyer, so the buyer will have a kind of monopoly and very high bargaining power. You will have to go as low as possible in your price. And vice versa, if you are the only one supplier and there are many buyers, you can charge anything you want from them. Let's talk about the situation when you are dependent on only one supplier. And usually we say that this supplier can charge any price he or she wants, but actually there's also another option. You can integrate vertically. It means you can start producing the same product on your own. And usually in the literature, at least in the book by Grant and Yevgen, 2015, they write about the firm Heinz and Campbell Soup that actually were completely dependent on the cans, and we even had an episode about it. Not about this company, but about the dependence on the cans. And they weren't so much dependent and wanted to get rid of this dependency that they decided to manufacture their own cans. And this made them not only independent, but also gave them more freedom, more flexibility, and allowed them to have better prices on the market. In this event, I tell my students one situation that I experienced when I was in Neu-Ulm. It is a small city in Germany, in Bavaria, and I used to work there at the university. And once we had to meet procurement managements from different pharmaceutical companies, because it is also the region where there are many pharmaceutical companies. And we had a long conversation. We asked our questions about the different aspects of their work, and one of them told us about a very interesting situation. And this specific manager, I will not tell his name, I will not tell the name of the firm he was working at, but anyway, he told about the following situation. They usually have to wear the latex gloves. Whatever you do in pharmaceuticals and medicine, you have to wear the latex gloves. And it was long before the COVID-19, it was I think in 2015, 2016. They said that the prices for these gloves were so volatile that they didn't know what to do with them. Sometimes they had to slow down their processes just because the organization didn't have sufficient gloves and they couldn't ensure the security for the employees. That's why they had to slow down the processes, and they wanted to get rid of the situation. All they had to pay very high prices, because if the market is volatile and there is a shortage in supply, then demand is growing, so usually you will have to, or you will offer a higher price in order to get the product, especially if you need it for your business process. And they decided at that moment, it was not the med decision, not final decision, but they started looking for the plantation of rubber trees somewhere in South America. And I think they found one, and they really thought about producing these gloves on their own. It would be a big investment, but they said that the losses and the risks they have because of the high volatility of the prices for the latex gloves was too high. That's why they wanted to have this latex or rubber trees plantation somewhere there and integrate it vertically. In this event, they would have reduced their dependency on somebody else and would have increased their bargaining power against the others producers, because they can always say, if you don't want to give them the clothes for us at a certain price, we can produce them on our own, or maybe even completely produce them on their own and don't even order them from somebody else. And this is the final driver that we're going to talk about in this course, in the bargaining power of buyers over suppliers or suppliers over buyers, because it will also apply to you. Think about your personal career. As you see in my episodes, I usually give an example from business and I also give examples from the personal career or suggestions. In your event, sometimes you are dependent on other people because they do something that you cannot do. If your dependency is too high, it may be a good idea to learn something, the necessary skill, or maybe to get a necessary tool, or maybe develop a certain competence, invest in it in order to be less dependent on other people. In the research, I see that many people are afraid of statistics, and each time they have to do complex calculations, they usually are dependent, have to take and co-author from another country or maybe another university who will make the calculations, and in this event, they probably also lose some power because they have to take another author, and you know that at our universities it's not only the paper that counts, but also the number of authors. In order to avoid this mistake, develop your own competence in the field of statistics, develop your competence in writing theory sections, develop your competence in whatever you need, whatever you work, whatever you are depending on the other people, especially if this dependency makes you unhappy or makes you lose too many things. I hope it was interesting and I hope it was useful. Wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.